Renji prepares his final stand towards the Reaper himself, charging one last bolt of thunder to protect what his sister has left behind. It strikes Arima's Narukami, a blade of thunder that was created from Renji's sister herself. It absorbs Renji's lightning and retaliates with its own. As the bolts of thunder almost graze his face, Renji accepts that his efforts have come to an end. But Kaneki Ken stands in front of Renji, while being across from the other Reaper, Arima Kisho. As Kaneki glances back toward his old friends in Ayato, Toka instantly knows that he's here to protect them rather than fight against them, and she's not even surprised. Banjo takes Kaneki's arrival as an opportunity to push everybody to move forward, as this is their only way out at this point. Arima Kisho is simply unparalleled and unstoppable, and to have Kaneki standing in his way is no more than a miracle of miracles. As Narukami gives out due to absorbing the blow from Renji, Arima throws Narukami to the side, and he charges towards Kaneki with Ixa, barely giving Kaneki a chance to react, but the attack is still blocked nonetheless. Kaneki's pushed back by Arima, and he notices that Arima, his own father, attacked with no hesitation. And he may have been banking on this said hesitation to survive this battle with Arima for a long period of time, but what's certain is, it does hurt Kaneki deep down inside. As Kaneki's been struggling with his and Arima's parent-child-like relationship before this battle, Kaneki reaffirms himself and yells back towards Ayato for his attention, telling him to head toward the lowest drainage port to safely escort everybody away from the detention center, and Ayato follows this command, but before they leave, Toka looks at Kaneki and tells him that she'll be seeing him later, and Kaneki responds to Toka by calling her cruel. Ayato and Ko reach the place where Kaneki left Hinami for them, and since it's their first time seeing Anteko and Ayato in a while, they all reunite, with Ayato apologizing for being late, and when Toka comes around, Hinami's scared to say anything since she had left Anteku to join Aogiri Tree, but Toka instantly accepts her once more and calls her an idiot. Ayato says let's go, and they head toward the garbage disposal. Kaneki then explains that there's a drainage port on the lowest level, connected to the disposal press, and while they head there, he will be the sacrificial pawn. We come back to a flashback of Arima scolding Heise, explaining to him that Akira came to see him and said that Heise had been showing pity to ghouls while on the job. Arima tells him to never show signs of hesitation when eradicating ghouls. Haven't I told you? Don't speak to ghouls. And as it clicks in Kaneki's head that Arima isn't speaking to him here, as if he was just another ghoul to exterminate, he begins to think to himself about how he could never be the investigator that Arima wanted him to be. From his perspective, he's taken pity on ghouls like Hinami, and now he's even attempted to free them from Kokle. And worst of all, he's now drawn his blade against his mentor. The two begin to fight, and Kaneki thinks to himself while questioning Arima whether he's upset at him or if he's just disappointed in him. He states that he was never truly able to understand Arima, and that he's truly tried to live up to his expectations, and despite this, Arima still isn't showing any signs of indecision or hesitation. Arima manages to counter Kaneki by stabbing him in the torso, and Kaneki admits that he truly does not want to fight Arima. And as Arima pulls the blade from his chest, he says, "Is that just me? You really won't talk to me, will you?" As Arima and Kaneki's battle continues, they begin to exchange multiple blows, faster than any ever exchanged in the series, and Kaneki states that he's trained with Arima countless times before, but this is the first time that he's fought him seriously, and he points out that he can keep up with him. Kaneki begins to break down Arima's defense in an artistic sense, saying when you repeat the same expression in painting, writing, or any creative work, it's not because you're adept in that form. It's actually a sign of a deep-rooted insecurity. Arima, it's slight, but you have a tendency in your defense. It's to the left, your right eye. The momentary pause that occurs here leaves you. Stop messing around. We see a butterfly gently fluttering through the air, and as it comes closer, it's instantly crushed by a hand. A man then asks, "What is it, Kisho?" To which Arima responds with a little bit of silence, and then says, "An insect." We come to the present, where Kaneki is still registering the pain of both of his legs being cut off at the same time, all the while staring at Arima in the distance. Arima has his back turned towards him, not even acknowledging him. Kaneki desperately tries to get himself together, and Arima asks him, "What are you going to do?" Kaneki can't do anything here but panic, and Arima asks Kaneki if he wants to die once more. Kaneki says to himself that Arima truly doesn't see him, but what he sees is, we are then shown Arima surrounding the corpses of Kaneki's friends. An airhead? Nah, he's more of a genius than an airhead. Investigator Arima is really strong. I've known him for a long time, but I don't really know him. He's definitely one of the investigators that we all idolize. He's without a doubt the CCG's most effective investigator. Regular guys like us can't understand him. The ultimate investigator. He's peerless. It's almost scary. Empty. He's a bit aloof. He's almost cruel when it comes to ghouls. Can't tell what he's thinking. Heisei. There's a book I'd like to share with you. It's a collection of short stories by Kafka. Investigator Arima. They all say the same thing about him. They say that they don't understand him. I too don't know who he is, but I think of him as a father figure. As Kaneki finally crawls to Arima, Arima holds his quinque, Ixa, in front of Kaneki's eye, and asks him, "Is this what you wanted?" Kaneki's unable to move or answer as he's simply shocked, and as Arima attempts to stab Kaneki through his eye once more, he begins to crawl towards his legs. Kaneki grabs one of his legs and attaches it on. He begins to crawl for another, but he's stopped by a blade piercing the leg that he just reattached, and is flung off again. Kaneki begins to yell in pain, with Arima standing over him saying, 645 times. That's the number of times I could have critically injured you, and also, the number of times I decided against doing so. I could kill you in 2 seconds. Your eyes are the eyes of the dead. The dead cannot stop me. What did you choose? Because I choose to pursue those ghouls after I kill you. All I need is 5 minutes to eradicate them. I assure you I will, for that's the choice I've made. And you? Kaneki says that he will be stopping Arima here, but Arima simply flicks the blade at Kaneki and sends him flying. He says that Kaneki's hopeless, and he's had enough of this nonsense. And as he goes in to finish Kaneki, he tells him that the time he spent on him was wasted. And as Kaneki sees the blade, he begins to panic once more. Knowing that he's going to die, Before we even know what's happened, we see that Arima has the barrier of Ixa up, shielding himself from a massive impact, and Kaneki flying past him with a massive claw. We get a closer look at Kaneki's state, and we see that he's activated his Kakuja. He simply says, "Not yet." Arima stands in the distance, recognizing that his Ixa has now been shattered as well. He tells an unknown character to drop his quinque, and that he's located in the basement. As a suitcase lands on the floor, Arima picks it up, and begins to explain that this quinque was made using the kakuho I took from a ghoul when I was only 19. And if you haven't put it together yet, this is the quinque that was created from Yoshimuro's kakuho when he and Arima fought many years ago. And correct me if I'm wrong, but this seems to be the only quinque ever made from a ghoul who is still alive. And after the introduction to the first SSS ring quinque, it's stated that Kaneki will be its first victim. As Kaneki's in a Kakuja state, he's incohesive, stating things such as "you idiot" and "I'll protect," and Arima simply questions Kaneki, asking if he's ready, and the two dash toward one another. We move from their battle to Eto, the one-eyed owl, and she says that, "You're hanging in there, young man." And then we move forward to Ayato's team. He says that he's been able to activate the emergency shutdown, and that the press should stop now, allowing them to escape through the drainage port. And when they reunite with Banjo and Hinami embrace one another. Ayato then asks Toka if she's sure about leaving Kaneki behind to fight Arima, and she explains that if they're there, Kaneki will make no effort to win, but instead focus on protecting everybody else. They enter the drainage port, and Hinami hears a crunch and asks Ayato, "What is that noise?" And as they all notice, the drainage port is activated, crushing all of them. We see that Furuta was the one to activate this mechanism, and he laughs while saying "yuck." As he pukes, he asks his lackeys to rub his back to get it out easier, and once recovering, he says that was quite the splendid barf. Furuta then goes on to explain that he was able to anticipate them escaping through the pressway in advance, and that he really can't stop laughing nowadays. But much to his dismay, Eto in her full Kakuja emerges from the drainage port, completely destroying it, and launching many Kagane crystals towards Furuta and his team, killing all of his subordinates. Furuta begins to yell in shock and dismay, whereas Eto questions him, saying, "Did you anticipate this? Thanks for the pate. Can I have seconds?" Banjo, seeing Eto, asks, "Why would she even save us?" And Aito says that he has no idea, but they need to move forward. As we come back to Kaneki and Arima battling once more, Arima is able to seamlessly dodge most of Kaneki's attacks and prepare Ao's firing move, launching multiple projectiles towards Kaneki. And as he's midair flying towards Arima, Kaneki creates a shield with his Kakuja, blocking these crystals while simultaneously shooting another part of his Kakuja towards Arima. This goes through Arima's coat and catches him, and with no time to waste, Arima removes the coat from himself before the Kakuja can wrap around him, and Arima dashes towards Kaneki. The two clash both of their blades, and after this clash, Arima is able to notice something. Kaneki, in the midst of their clash, was able to wrap his Kakuja around an owl, and he pulls Arima towards him. But little does Kaneki know, Owl has a trap mode as well. And as the blade of Owl disintegrates, it goes under Kaneki, and opens the blade once more, piercing him with so much force that he's sent flying into the air, and he falls back down as if he were a leaf. The blade disintegrates once more, and as Arima dashes towards Kaneki to finish him off, the blade of Owl reattaches itself to the handle that Arima was still holding. While Arima's in the middle of his finisher, Kaneki states that he needs more flesh and blood, regeneration. He has no defense, and he can't even evade. His mind is... After that, it was a one-sided battle. I was cut up and carved. Every place I regenerated, he just cut open again. I barely had any sensation. I almost felt at peace, like a potato inside of a stew. As Kaneki's cut up and rent asunder, he tells himself that he thinks he's done. He lands onto the ground with Arima's back towards him once more, not even acknowledging him. He chokes on his own blood, and he begins to pass out, wondering if Toka and the others got out okay. And as he begins to pass on, he says, "I did all I could." But he's then interrupted by someone asking him what is he talking about. A hand grabs Kaneki's arm, and we see that it's Hide, asking him, "Did all you could? Death by drowning? Who are you in that story?" Kaneki's shocked to see Hide return, and after Kaneki collects himself, they sit down to talk in Kaneki's mental scape. Hide asks Kaneki if he really believes that Kaneki has bought them enough time and done his part. And Kaneki responds to this by touching his chin, saying that they should be at the disposal site by now. Hide, seeing Kaneki's body language, instantly picks up that he's lying and tells him that he knows something has happened up there. So he asks Kaneki if he's really okay with losing, although he knows something's going on. And Kaneki says, but he can't. And Hide says, when? He tells Kaneki to have more confidence in himself, especially since he's ripped now. And as the two converse a bit more, Kaneki breaks down and tells Hide that he really misses him and begins to cry a bit. And this makes Hide say his last words to Kaneki before parting, asking him if he's a rabbit. You always say you want to die or disappear, but you just haven't found a reason to live, and you'll find one in no time. Don't waste the life that was spared. Come on, you can walk now, can't you? Go, Kaneki. Die heroically. Sacrifice your life for somebody, was it? You idiot. I wanted to keep living with you. I'll keep saying it until you hear me. Even if you have to claw your way through, live. Arima stares at Kaneki to see that he's slowly recovering and rising up once more. Kaneki meets Arima's gaze, and this time he makes sure to do so with a smile. And Arima, seeing this, confirms that the lesson he wanted to bestow to Kaneki has reached him, and thus, he can't help but crack a slight smile. The two begin battle once more, and Kaneki begins to speak. Beaten, going back on everything I chose, repeating the same mistakes. I'm worthless, uncool, pathetic, indecisive, a coward. That's who I am. The two exchange multiple blows as Kaneki continues to speak. What a distorted perspective one arrives at after nearly dying. Rize, Hide, they were always a part of me. I caused all of it. The person I want to meet, what I want to hear. I know Hide will stop me. The moment I thought that was the moment I wished for it. I wish to live. We come back to Eto and Furuta, and we see her crushing even more members of V. Furuta says so useless, and after Eto looks at him, he gasps. We get a better look at Furuta cowering, and see that he's rambling to Eto per usual, begging for her to spare him. And he even offers up an apology at the end, to which Eto deems unnecessary. Furuta yells "I thought so," and begins to dash through the hall. His associate yells for him to fight back, and Eto's like, "That's right, fight," which I found pretty funny. And he continues to run even more. Eto's talking hella shit as Furuta is screaming for backup, and Furuta is eventually cornered, saying that she's a monster. He begins to laugh a bit as he recognizes that all of his subordinates have been killed by Eto, and as she goes in to finish him off, he screams that he truly hates fighting. So, and without a moment's notice, Eto's Kakuja has been cut into shreds, and it immediately deactivates. Furuta continues to speak, stating that he knows how we can resolve this, and it's revealed that he has a Kagune of his own. We see the perspective of outside of Kokle, the detention center in which all these events are taking place, and as we hear two agents speak, one asks how they should handle the escaped ghouls, which is Ayato's team, and the other says that Aura and Mogen have arrived, so they'll be able to handle that. They say that they're going to the sub-level since Arima's by himself. We come back to the fight, seeing Kaneki's Kakuja graze Arima's shoulder and then curl, slamming into Arima, which is then blocked by him. Kaneki sees this and decides that it's time to end this battle. So, he creates a massive net with his Kakuja, daring Arima to dodge it, and this lad casually jumps up, turns sideways, and spin dashes through the net with his quinque, landing past it, and as he settles in, he doesn't see anything in front of him, but we see that Kaneki has set up a ring of Kagune tentacles around Arima to trap him. And Arima then responds by taking Owl and spinning in a complete circle, eradicating all the Kagune. But then, he hears someone coming from behind to strike him, or does he? It's shown that Kaneki had planted a Kagune with a mouth to speak, in order to trick Arima into believing that it was actually him. And as Arima has no time to react, Kaneki strikes, destroying his quinque. Arima recoils from blocking Kaneki's attack, and notices that his quinque has been destroyed. As he stands once more, Kaneki states that it's over. He's destroyed Arima's quinque, and in this condition, this battle is... But Arima dashes towards Kaneki, finishing Kaneki's sentence saying continues until the enemy falls, catching Kaneki off guard. Kaneki sticks his hand out and Arima cuts it off. Despite his broken quinque, this man is still the monster he is. Nonetheless, Kaneki reinforces his other arm and blocks Arima regardless, saying that he should have known. He then retaliates with his extra Kagune to push Arima back and give him some distance. The two continue their fight, Kaneki stating that he's right. He can even fight with a broken quinque. But if he insists on continuing, what I need to do is incapacitate him. Considering if he should attack his arms or legs, but then Arima manages to stab Kaneki directly, but to no avail. Kaneki brushes it off and says that this battle has already been decided, and that they no longer need to fight. It's useless. Arima pulls out the blade, and he asks Kaneki if he truly has no intention of finishing him off, and Kaneki says no. Arima looks up. He has no choice but to admit defeat. As we see Kaneki, Arima states 18 years. I've been an investigator for 18 years and not once have I ever been at a loss against an enemy. Until now. So I will ask you one last time. You're certain you have no intention of killing me? And Kaneki confirms this. As Kaneki realizes what Arima has done, he instantly runs towards him, asking his father what the hell he's doing. Arima looks at Kaneki and begins to explain that he's been waiting, and as Kaneki interrupts, Arima tells him that he needs to listen. He explains that he's never had much time left, but his end came sooner than expected. Him, Haru, Furuta, the investigators that have been chosen from the Sunlit Garden are not human, but are revealed to be half-human failures instead. Arima points out his right eye to Kaneki, saying that he's sure that Kaneki knows he's almost blind. Glaucoma, a common condition for the elderly, and Kaneki questions what Arima is saying, as Arima begins to further explain that those from the garden have an accelerated aging process, and that he's even about to lose sight in his other eye. His time was just around the corner. Arima breaks down that each human from the garden have one ghoul parent, and Kaneki thinks to himself that this could be a joke, but Arima never jokes around. Arima asks Kaneki, do you know the result of a child being born from a human and a ghoul? And from everything we know, Kaneki answers with a one-eyed ghoul? Arima then says, not all. Cases like one-eyed ghouls are rare. He says that sunlit garden children are not that different from human children. They don't necessarily possess cognition, and they can even eat human food unlike ghouls, but what's different is their slightly heightened physical abilities and their massively shortened lifespans. Kaneki questions as to why. Why would anybody do such a thing in creating these children? And Arima says, who knows? I can't say for certain, but becoming human is maybe what the Washu wanted. We then move forward to Rue Island. This part is important for what Arima will be saying in a couple of minutes, so we're covering it. Marudo points a gun towards Matsuri Washu. He questions Marudo as to what's happened to his command, and why he's even pointing a gun at him in the first place. Marudo responds, saying it wasn't this book that convinced him. This book's assertion that the Washu family is conspiring with ghouls is plain wrong. He did some investigation of his own, from his eating habits to his behavior, and tried to dig up anything suspicious about the Washu, and yet, he still found nothing. Except for one thing. He received a tip that the RC scan gates are rigged. The systems that prevent quinques, weapons created from ghouls themselves from sounding the alarms, were also applied to certain individuals. He had someone look into when these systems responded, and it responded to Arima, his Squad Zero members, specifically from the garden, Ching Li of the Qs, and the Washu family. Marudo puts it all together, and says that the Washu are not ghoul conspirators, but instead, ghouls themselves. Matsuri simply smirks and says that the Marudo he once knew was not so naive, and that he's known both Matsuri and Arima for a while. If he wants, he can even check the examination records for both when the operation has wrapped up. But Marudo says it may not be conclusive, but as my old friend used to say, I hate saying it, it's just a hunch. He then shoots Marudo in the head. As Matsuri lays on the floor and Marudo stares at him, he simply prays that this was only a murder and that he's been wrong, but much to his dismay, he was correct all along. Matsuri stands back up and expresses disappointment in Marudo, revealing that he was a ghoul all along. Marudo thinks to himself, saying, damn it was a lie, all of it. Your tip was right, Hide. What did everybody we've lost die for? We come back to Kaneki absorbing the information that Arima has told him about the Washu, and he pieces together that the ghouls his original caretaker, Yoshimura, decided to work with in the past were the Washu family, the leaders of the CCG. He then asks Arima what is it that he wants from him, and Arima explains that he needs Kaneki to be the one who killed him, to own up to this feat. As for what he wants from him, he'll find that out soon enough. Arima stares at Kaneki and says please, it has to be you. Kaneki accepts his request, stating that he's the one who killed him. Arima reaches for Kaneki one last time, thanking him, and as we see that he's never crushed a butterfly from before, but instead released it, he says I never wanted it, a life of taking others' lives. Through Kaneki, he's come to believe that he's finally been able to leave something behind. And as Arima begins to pass away, it's said that the one who sought death more than anybody was the Reaper himself. We come back to the drainage channel, where Toka and crew seem to have finally made it out of Coquelet, but the CCG was far ahead of them. As we look outward, we see a woman stand over them. Another special investigator, Kyoko Ora. She simply states that they're quite large to be rats. And not only that, while the ghouls' attention is on Ora, they're flanked by Mugen Tanakamaru, another special investigator. Ayato notices him, and Mugen activates Higher Mind, charging up a beam towards them, and Hinami is able to react so quickly, telling everybody to stand back. She activates her Kagune, blocking the blast from Higher Mind, and as Mugen calls her impressive, she falls unconscious as that blast was simply too much for her to bear. This makes Ayato frustrated, and he charges into the special investigator with an attack, but Mugen is able to parry and counter, creating space between him and Ayato. Ayato studies the quinque and creates a strategy to fight Mugen, but he's quickly interrupted by Ora. She states that she'll be backing up Mugen, and shoots multiple spares of her Zebisu quinque. And as his quinque was made from an Ukaku ghoul, Ayato says please, predicting the movements of such a quinque is easy. But little did little bro know, those spares can track him. They latch onto him and explode, knocking him out, and the two special investigators go to finish him off. They both launch their Higher Mind and Zebisu blast, but Toka comes in for the save, using the blast generated from deploying her Kagune to hold off both of the attacks simultaneously. and the scene fades. As Arima's squad is finally caught up to him, his right hand, Taka, Hiriko, and the younger Squad Zero members look on towards Kaneki. And as Hiriko looks at him, he says, "Sasa, no, Ken Kaneki." He asks if Arima's dead, and Kaneki says, "Yes, I killed him." Hiriko says, "I see," and Kaneki says, "If you come any closer, I'm going to." But Hiriko takes off his hood and says that I'm not here to fight, calling Kaneki a terrible liar. And the rest of the Squad Zero members ask if they're able to say their goodbyes to Arima, to which Hiriko confirms that they can. They all surround him crying, and Hiriko explains that these are also children from the garden, and Arima was their beacon of hope. Kaneki asks about Hiriko himself, but Hiriko says he was no more than a subordinate. He tells Kaneki to follow him as they're now going to escape Kokle, and by Arima's orders, Squad Zero is to help Kaneki's escape. Kaneki figures out that this entire fight was basically Arima's plan from the beginning. Kaneki asks if he's able to say his goodbyes to Arima as well, and Hiriko decides to say yes by handing Kaneki something, saying that this is something Arima wanted him to have. And we see that it's a souvenir that Kaneki once bought him. Kaneki looks at it and says, "I never got to see him wear it. He was Ainu." To send Arima off, Kaneki recites this poem. Aged eagle, old and wrinkled, sickened and tired, white-bearded, the solemn adze, blade in hand, sharpening, sitting cross-legged, carving you, his mind faded. Those who expand across the land, all is well, I have accepted. I have aged, I bemoan. I am white, I shine bright. I shall fade, oh so quickly. To the man who killed me, the man who gave me my name, the man who entrusted me with his hope, Investigator Arima, you are my teacher and my father. I was truly blessed. Some time passes and we see Kaneki and his team moving along the drainage channel to escape and catch up to Toka, and they see Eto after a battle against Furuta. She says that she's glad to see him and it was worth crawling here for that, but she tells him that she's going to die. She explains to Kaneki that she was helping Toka and her team escape and Furuta did this to her. As Kaneki questions why she'd do that in the first place, she says that she promised him, didn't he? Kaneki then says, "So since you did that, you want me to grant your wish now, right?" Calling her high-handed, and she retorts by saying, "People who always get their way are like this, but it doesn't matter now since he no longer has to grant her this wish of killing the One-Eyed King." The scene changes back to Toka holding off both of the attacks, even pushing the two special investigators off with her lightning. But like the others, doing so has exhausted her. As the investigators beneath the special grace prepare to finish Toka off, Banjo's subordinates come in and intercept them. Mogen gets up from Toka's attack, and Renji's already attacking him, stalling him. Banjo runs over to Toka, asking if she's okay, and she asks him to take care of Ayato since he's severely damaged, to which he says he will. Banjo's subordinates then charge towards Aura, and she's able to cut them down with absolute ease. Mogen explains that they tried to pressure her with close combat since she's a Ukaku type fighter, and that's their weakness. But close combat is Aura's specialty, and a standard skill for a special investigator. And as he says this, he pins Renji with his higher mind, and charges it towards his torso, knocking him out once more. As he claims the end is near, Squad Zero interrupts, attacking both special investigators, and they ask Hiriko what the hell he's doing. Hiriko simply reaches into his front pocket and pulls out a resignation paper, stating, "I quit." He puts it on the floor, frustrating the two special investigators, and he prepares himself for battle. But that's when everyone hears rumbling above them, and as this goes on, we finish what Eto was saying to Kaneki. She says once more that he no longer needs to grant her wish, because you killed him, didn't you? The One-Eyed King. When it becomes known that a ghoul has been able to defeat and kill Arima, it will bring hope to all ghouls. Listen, it's the throne that the One-Eyed King and I kept warm. Sit in it, destroy it. It's up to you, Ken Kaneki. You are the One-Eyed King.